back once again. This is Chris Report, and he assured me that St. Simon's down in Boulders. Folks, this is Chris Wyatt reporting from South Africa. Happy St. Patrick's Day, folks. Welcome back to the program. This is Chris. It's a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. I hope there is one for each and every one of you. Welcome back to the program today, March 17th, 2024. It is, of course, St. Patrick's Day, the man who chased the snakes out of Ireland, or so they claim. Welcome back, those of you with Irish ancestry like myself. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to see you again on this St. Patrick's Day. Let me say hello to everybody in the chat. We'll drop the hat here in a moment, but it'll come back later for the conversation after the news. A little bit early broadcast today. I have things to do, run around, some errands to take care of after this, including campaign work. So I just want to get on here early and do the news. Val Cooper, welcome to you. Allison Johnson, Patrick, Teresa, Sue Walsh, Gus, and Lorraine Slappert are here. There's Erica. All right, so 18 people here, and at least 6, that's 1/3 of the audience chatting. So welcome to the program, folks. And if I'm a little bit behind, my apologies, although it looks like it's caught up. YouTube didn't start my broadcast for a full 17 seconds. I almost had to restart this thing again. Jeb Jackson's here. Welcome, Jeb Jackson, Bebop Williams, George Steinberg. Welcome to all of you guys, and a happy St. Patrick's Day. Happy Ian is here, and welcome, Ian. Michael Holmes, do you think MK and EFF should join the MPC? No, I do not. They are diametrically opposed to the goals of the multi-party charter. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. Let me take this off. Okay, so happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. And we'll get back to that hat a little bit later on in the broadcast. But we saw the event that the Daily Maverick hosted, in which the Minister of Injustice, Ronnie Lamola, was present, along with members of the multi-party charter and other political parties like Gate McKenzie's Patriotic Alliance were all present for this event. And in it, Herman Mashaba said something to the effect that it's not about trust. It's not about what we believe with the other folks. It's about getting rid of the ANC. Well, yes, it's ultimately about getting rid of the ANC, but you can't have parties that believe in free market capitalism and then social control of the means of production working together. None of the parties in the multi-party charter profess to want the state to run South Africa's economy, so they can work together. None of those parties are against free market capitalism. None of those parties oppose a multi-racial, multi-ethnic, representative democracy. Now, they may have different ways to achieve that. They may have different goals inside of that. They may have a different focus for what's most important right now: fighting crime, protecting women, ensuring the economy survives, fixing electricity, fixing infrastructure. They may have different views and approaches on that, but they're not diametrically opposed. However, when it comes to the Mkhonto weSizwe Party and the EFF, they are diametrically opposed to the rule of law, diametrically opposed to human rights. Yes, that's correct, because they believe expropriation without compensation is an appropriate thing. And that's a violation of human rights. It's a violation of property rights. It's a violation of key tenets of the rule of law, among many other things. So MK and EFF are not compatible with the multi-party charter. Remember, I covered the multi-party charter from the outset, from the sort of recommendation that I made before John Steenhuisen even came up with his Moonshot Pact. I talked about these parties getting together. Obviously, they were doing it behind the scenes, unbeknownst to me, but I was suggesting as a political analyst for months, for a couple of years prior to this election, that a coalition would be needed to unseat the ANC. But I mean, that's a pretty obvious analysis. It's not like it made me a genius, or I'm not doing particle physics or breaking hydrogen into its constituent proponents of protons and neutrons. Aren't those part of hydrogen? Anyway, point here is that it wasn't exactly rocket science, but they did announce they're going to have he had the Moonshot Pact. And then this came along. These parties must work together to some degree. Herman Mashaba was trying to make the point that the most important point for the MPC is not how it will work together, but how it will unseat the ANC. The country's in that dire situation. So I agree with Herman Mashaba from that standpoint, but I think his wording was unfortunate and unnecessary. Meanwhile, Gate McKenzie is talking about people carrying dompas again. They want you to carry dompas everywhere you go. So all South Africans must carry paperwork and be stopped and frisked by police at any time. This is a return to the inhumane rules of apartheid and unnecessary. But to be fair, most countries around the world actually require people to carry photo ID with them at all times. Isn't that amazing? America is an exception. I can leave my house without photo ID, and the cops can't charge me the crime. And they can ask who I am, and I can tell them to get stuffed foot sec, unless they suspect me of committing a crime, and they must tell me what they suspect me of committing. If so, then I must identify myself. Other than that, they can get stuffed. None of their damn business who I am, what I'm doing out in public. None whatsoever, especially on private property. But there you go, folks. Herman Mashaba said that the stumbling block to taking over Joburg because PA won't be allowed in the coalition for Joburg. Well, I'm not surprised. And in fact, the Patriotic Alliance will achieve so few votes that it will be of political insignificance. So, yeah, he can afford to say that. Yep. Right, let me see. Have you asked Peter Groenewald if he would allow the No, I have not, Michael. I haven't been in touch with Peter Groenewald in several months. I've been very busy with my own campaign here. My plan here is after the April election, pending the outcome of the April 23rd results, I will either step up my efforts to reach out, but I've been ignored. I mean, look, I'm not picking on people, but I did ask Ian Cameron. I was the first to ask Ian Cameron to come on my program, and I see that he went on Morning Shot, but I haven't heard back from Ian. He agreed to come on my program. He said, sure, and I said, what day works for you? And I've not heard from Ian. Now, to be fair, Ian is a busy guy, and I'm not denigrating Ian Cameron. He's a wonderful person, but it does show you how unimportant answering my questions is to him. Obviously, reaching out to a South Africa-based commentator like Roman and Byron is more important to him than coming on this program. That's why I asked early on, didn't get a response. I also asked for a response from Francois Rogers of the Democratic Alliance in KZN, and I haven't got a response back on that. I've also asked to speak to Chris Pappas as a provincial candidate for premier, and I got a positive response, but no follow-up on that, so I'm still waiting for that. At this point, either my persistence isn't there, which may very well be the case, or I'm being iced out of things by South African politicians, which is very much to their detriment and not wise. Politicians should be transparent, not opaque. Now, I've never had success reaching out to Gabe McKenzie, but I've never talked to him directly. I've gone through intermediaries, and they're all useless. To be fair, I've also had no success talking to Dr. Kenneth Mishwe from the ACDP. I've reached out several times in the past to Dr. Kenneth Mishwe through senior members of his party and never once gotten him on the program. I have interviewed ACDP politicians in the past, including Demi Dudley. But look, it's they can do what they want. They don't have to answer questions. As a political candidate, I'm getting inundated by requests. I have not turned down a single media interview from any media outlet. One of them contacted me and they never got back to me. So it just shows you how unserious these people are. In fact, I might file a grievance with the ombudsman for them wasting my time. Anyway, yeah, so. Yeah, so what else did I miss here? Ulrich Fenter. So my election coverage, which started last year. Now, the only candidate that always gives a response from one of these political parties, whenever I ask for it, and in a timely fashion, is Neil de Beer from the UIM. I never got an interview with John Steenhuisen, despite repeated polite professional requests for several years. Did get him at the multi-party charter, but I was really pressed for time and only got him for a minute, and he wasn't happy with me because of something I'd said in the question and answer session. Well, that's unfortunate that he inferred incorrectly. But yeah, no, South African politicians can do what they want. People can feel aggrieved if they want. I know I've felt aggrieved by conduct of some people in the media, but that's just life. We have to move on. As a politician, your job should be to be as transparent and honest as possible. That doesn't mean you're always telling everything or revealing every detail, because you have negotiations, you have responsibilities, and some things are simply embargoed from public release because of the nature of them, or because of the classification of them, or because of negotiations ongoing. But as soon as you can tell people the facts, you should do that. You should never hide behind that. So anyway, that's just a philosophy I think that's sound for anyone, but that's not the norm in politics. So Hakan Eggman's here. Welcome, Hakan. What else we got there? Bebop Williams. And Debbie says, happy St. Patrick's Day. Love the shirt. We would have loved the hat. If you hang around, you'll see the hat again. Vilma Rasmus, hello. That's okay if you missed something, but thanks to 54 people currently here and 20 likes. That's a start. We're not really where we need to be on likes, but 20 is a start. Well, I'll accept that for now. All right. So anyway, lots to talk about today, of course, on St. Patrick's Day. Congratulations to Ireland, which despite its collapse last week against England in a foolish loss that never should have occurred, which prevented them from a back-to-back Grand Slam in which it would have beaten every single team in the Six Nations. And that's never been done before. They fell short, losing to England, who, of course, lost to France yesterday in quite a thrilling game. I think that was in France at the Stade de France, in a 33-31 victory for France, salving their Rugby World Cup wounds slightly. But that really doesn't make up for losing to South Africa by a single point in France and not winning a World Cup on their home stage. Yeah, and twice South Africa has won the World Cup in France. Isn't that something? They've won it in South Africa. They won it in Japan. They won it in France twice. Facebook coverage of the debate was muffled. Yes, it was, Bebop. That's because, once again, much unfortunately like my coverage, I'm an amateur videographer in some respects, and I did this to enlighten the world. But until I found a proper microphone that I could extend with a cord, which is what they should have done, I was kind of stuck with putting my phone up and then sound coming across the room. And that's what happened in that debate. So that was not the best way to do things. In the auditorium, the sound could be heard pretty well, except in the back where sometimes it was a bit muffled. So in the debate, that's why I now have a microphone that has 2 mics on it, and I can run it from my phone and sit down or stand with the person I'm interviewing, and you can hear them on the microphone, and we're crystal clear. That's the way to do things. But I don't know that the people who organized this debate had ever done that before. They certainly did a great job with the format, the execution, I would say even the announcement of it was pretty well done. But yeah, weekend is treating everyone well. Let's hope so. Why everyone sitting next to each other? That was their choice. I wasn't given the rules properly. It was very disappointing, to be honest. Afterwards, I found out from a couple candidates that they'd actually been sent rules, unless they lied to me. I have no reason to believe they lied to me. But for instance, for the debate, I was told only the following, that you get 3 minutes to introduce yourself. You get 2 minutes to respond to a question. You get 30 seconds for rebuttal if someone challenges you or raises a point about you. And you get 3 minutes for closing. You cannot bring campaign materials into the building. You're welcome to keep them in your car, which is what I said I would do in my truck. So the first thing I noticed when I came in is that we'd be sitting. All the candidates except me had portfolios of prepared notes. I had made some notes and put them on a clipboard just for reference points on some issues, but did not write down any of my responses to any questions. So everything I said came directly from me, not from prepared script. So I'm not complaining about that. Doing things extemporaneously is something I've done for decades. It's not an issue. But had I known that I was permitted to bring a portfolio, I had the clipboard, and if I was going to be prohibited, I didn't know if I was allowed or prohibited, so I kept my bag and it was going to go in the bag. But had I known I'd been allowed to bring prepared scripts like that, then I simply probably would have prepared a few of them with over large fonts and had them sitting there, not read for them, but at least made sure I hit the high points and highlighted. But I did that, so no complaints there. But did not know we would be seated. Also did not know how we would be seated. When I came in, the candidates were seated alphabetically from far left to right, which is closest to the stage. Since I'm Wyatt, I was in the end. I'm like, ooh, good spot. That's closest to the crowd. And I'm taller than any of the candidates, and so I tower over them a little bit, so that gives me a little more advantage physically. Not that that really matters, and then also I would be the last to introduce myself and the last to close. And like, wow, that's great. But then they came along and said, okay, we're going to draw lots. They had little balls in a can. They shook it up and they took the balls out, and they just picked people at random. One candidate went and wound up at number 2 or something like that. Another candidate went, and then they looked at me and said, we're going to pull your number now. And I was 3rd. They pulled my number, and it was number 5. So I wound up with the best spot in my view. So not everybody agreed it's the best spot. So that's kind of how that went. The debate link is there. It's on Facebook. If someone can share it. I don't have time to dig it out right now. All right. Nothing like beer, babes, and bra. Okay, joking atheist. You came across well, Chris, but sounds well. Thank you, Bebop. Thank you very much. Yeah, no, I heard from a few people. In fact, let me see if I can find that. I'll tell you this. This is what one gentleman said after the debate, okay? Look, people have their own views. There were fanboys that came for one of the candidates. There were a large number of underage high school students there, and there's nothing wrong with that, but high school students who were there to cheer, and that's not so cool, particularly when people are told not to cheer. But whatever, people can't contain their enthusiasm, but that was false enthusiasm. 9 people are eligible to vote, so just saying. But here's something that someone sent me after the debate the next day. Mr. Wyatt, I wanted to reach out and say how moved I was on Wednesday at the debate. I went in not knowing any of the local district candidates and walked away with a fire lit under me. I don't have much to offer in terms of cash, but I wanted to reach out and see if there's any way I can volunteer to work with your campaign. I really appreciate you reading this, and regardless of the outcome, I'm 100% certain you're the best person for the 92nd District. And so that's one I got. As a result, I got a few volunteers that came forward. But there's some strange things going on, and I'll hold my fire on that and not comment further on that until after the primary is over and I've won it. and then I might share with you. Today's topic will be the news, Ian. We're going to get to that in just a moment, but it is Sunday. Relax, take a deep breath. We're going to talk about South Africa. I'm going to talk specifically about a few things. Now, I did want to address one thing. Looking forward to Thursday, though, heading to Strandloper. Okay, and Langeman. Okay. But thank you, Bebop Williams. I'm glad it came across well. But the debate was attended by maybe 300 people, of which probably about 60 were high school kids. So other than making noise and grabbing their parents' jackets and telling them to vote for a candidate, it's not really much of an effect. There were at least a dozen, perhaps 20 influential Republicans in the crowd, including state representatives, former state representatives and senators, and people who influence others. And I have no idea what they had to say, so we'll see. But without going into much depth, you can watch it. One of my opponents almost never answered the question and launched into lesson and lectures to the audience. Another one was not particularly prepared and couldn't answer questions well. One candidate I thought did his best. And then another candidate who many people thought was a front runner in this early on didn't even use half the time most of the time, not because the person was too succinct, but because their answers weren't particularly in depth. Only one answer was heavily thought out, and that was one related to schools, and there's a reason why, because the person's affiliated with that. So anyway, but whatever. You can judge for yourself what you thought. I thought my performance could have been better, and it wasn't really a debate. It was simply a question and answer session, if we're honest about it. That's really what it all was a question and answer session, excuse me. Debates have candidates, talking to each other and addressing things that each say. So, yeah. I also had somebody try to afterwards ask me a question, caught me off guard, and I was talking about Ohio and growing up in Ohio, and he said, how many counties? And he did say Pennsylvania, but I heard Ohio, and I said like 89 or 90. And another guy says, you don't even know how many counties are in Pennsylvania. Why should I vote for you? You don't know anything about the state. And that's kind of ironic because I had just been on the stage in which I talked about specific House bills. I talked about the budget. I talked about the deficit for this state. I talked about the actions of this governor and the lack of action from this legislature, all of which would require deep understanding of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But to play stump the chump when the guy comes and taps me on the shoulder and asks me a question unrelated to a conversation I'm having over here, and then that guy, whatever. Look, if that's how you're going to decide to vote, well, then that's how you're going to decide to vote. But thank you for asking me the question. And, Pennsylvania has a number of counties, which is not my favorite number. It's Ronaldo's favorite number. It's 69. Whatever. All right. The gaming chair has been around for a while. This is a replacement. The original one stopped going up and down. Cheap Chinese garbage. The debate was a good way to introduce Chris. Yeah, it was. But I was attacked by a troll. By the way, the troll is the mother of a woman who was fired, who was running us into bankruptcy for ineptitude, and a person who abandoned her post without having staff there for the next day and got sacked for that. But that person's mother chose to slander me. It was comical. One of our viewers sent me a screen capture because I obviously didn't watch the live debate. I was in it. And in the live debate, this person starts going on and on about how I'm boasting about myself and talking about all myself. And it's basically, it's annoying to listen to him talk to himself. If you look at the still, you'll see that my head is down and there is a pen in my hand and I'm writing. I'm not talking. That's because I hadn't started yet. When I introduced myself, I stood up like Mark Anderson did to address the crowd directly. So I wasn't even talking about myself. So whatever. And by the way, when you introduce yourself, you are supposed to spend those 3 minutes telling people who you are so they get to know you, a little bit about you, what you've accomplished, where you're from, what you're all about. So by definition, your introduction, you're supposed to talk about yourself. It's not like, hey, listen, I'm Chris Wyatt. I'm running for the 92nd district. Let me tell you about Brett Sessoms. Lives down in Mississippi. Wonderful guy. Really cares about equality and fairness, but he's not woke. You should learn more about Brett. Well, thank you for my 3 minutes. I mean, come on, honestly, criticize for talking about myself. Wasn't that the purpose of it? Yeah, guy talked a lot but said so little. Thank you. That's what I was talking about, Bebop. People will interpret how they want. A lot of people, minds are already made up. People are going to vote for people because they went to high school with them. You can't change that. People are going to vote for people because they've been around for a long time. You can't change that. People are going to vote for people because they like them. You can't change that. That's all you can do is meet as many voters as possible and talk to as many people as possible, share your views and see if they agree with you. You don't have to, look, politics isn't about the best candidate winning. It isn't about the most patriotic, the most honest winning. It's about a number of factors. And hopefully the best candidate, the most qualified, the most honest can win at the end of the day. But that isn't always the case. So we'll see what happens. We will see what happens. and became members are viewed as heroes because of the propaganda of the African National Congress since the 1994 elections, in which they venerated MK heroes and acted as if they were actually heroes, and most of them weren't. There were a few brave people in the MK, but very few. Right. Look at Festerman. Exactly. John Fetterman was not even remotely even a qualified candidate, let alone the best candidate in Pennsylvania. No doubt about it. And Josh Shapiro, a man who, as the Attorney General, the top law enforcement official in the states, actively oversaw the violation of Act 77 in 2020. He actively oversaw and took no steps to make sure that the state conformed to the law that the governor had signed just a year prior. He failed in his primary responsibility as the Attorney General and became elected as governor. So the man who couldn't handle law enforcement now is responsible for all matters in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So the best candidate doesn't always win. But anyway. Yep, Jacob Zuma, Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, exactly. No, as I've told people, not unrelated to my race, Congress in D.C. is a den of vipers that at best in the House has 75, maybe 90 patriots, maybe. The rest are used car salesmen, ambulance chasing shyster lawyers, or people who are simply slightly better than their opponent, good looking, and have the gift of gab and convince people to vote for them. That's it. A lot of empty vessels sitting in the House of Representatives and also in the Senate. In the Senate, I would argue there's 25, maybe 35 genuine patriots. These are people in the House and Senate who are there for the American people, for this republic, not for their appearances at MSNBC, Fox News, CBS, not for their flaunting coverage in the media, not for their junkets paid for by lobbyists, not for their nearly $200,000 a year salary, perks of office, and being treated like they're royal when they're not particularly bright or successful. That's the bottom line. Ask yourself this question. A politician who spends their entire adult life in politics, what have they accomplished? Joe Biden has spent his entire adult life in politics. What did he accomplish as a senator in 38 years? Not a damn thing. Not a thing. The crime bill in the 1990s, which led to mandatory sentencing for third drug offenses, is what he accomplished. That's not an accomplishment. Right, we're 25 minutes in. We haven't even gotten to the news yet. Wow, let's get to the news. There's a lot of news to get to. So I'm going to read a couple stories today just to show you how bad things are in the world. Right, first, this very sick, twisted story. Now, I'm not going to blame the ANC for this, but I am going to blame ANC politicians because the ANC picks these people. You, the voters, don't get to pick these people, so I can only blame you for voting for the ANC. I can't blame you for voting for the candidate who screwed people. But a woman with two twin teen sons who have a genetic disorder that puts them in very bad shape has made a TikTok video in which she called for help. And people responded and donated money. And then the local ANC politicians came in and took over the thing, and these people have nothing. Over 700,000 rand raised, and they have nothing. Let's talk about this story. This is a big one, and this is one that should be exposed to show you the kind of people that attracted to the ANC. What was supposed to be the happiest day of her life turned into a nightmare for a Mpumalanga mother of teenage twins living with xeroderma pigmentosum, a rare genetic disorder that affects the skin, eyes, and sometimes the nervous system. After making known on TikTok her ordeal of living with twins in the shack, donors jumped in to rescue her. Not only by donating food and skin treatment creams to the boys, but also raising funds to buy her a house. The municipality then became involved in taking over the process, so the money was donated, went into the municipality's coffers, not into hers. 6 months later, Pumzila Makonza is still waiting for her dream to come true and has instead been sent from pillar to post by those who are supposed to get her a decent house. There she is with her sons, Lanwele and Loandile. According to the family and community of Bethel, 15 donors came forward, including Gift of the Givers and Colleen Mashwana Foundation, which offered to build a house in just 2 weeks. She said, everyone came on board after my TikTok video went viral, and I was very grateful that my video had reached people I'd never imagined I would see. However, the mayor shattered my dreams of getting a home urgently for my children. She said the mayor of Govan Mbeki Municipality, Nahalakpifo Zuma, said his team took her to view a house in Bethel Extension 4, and the whole community was also invited. I was very happy and felt as if my prayers had been answered. When I went to view the house, the owner was selling it for 900,000 rand, but he agreed to reduce it to 700,000 rand for my children's sake. Now look at that. The owner was willing to take a 200,000 rand loss, considered a donation, to help her teenage sons who have this condition, so she has a proper house and not a shack. There's the generosity of South Africans. Gift of the givers, and this other foundation gave money. People gave food. They raised money. She said she was confident. Hang on a second. I missed something here and there. Yeah. So she said she was confident because the ANC, which was running the town, had been her family's trusted political party for years because they're suckers. However, she's still waiting 6 months later. She said, for them to break me like this has left me shattered. Most of all, they hurt my children with all their empty promises. According to the family and the neighbor, the mayor hijacked the process of getting the twins out of the hot shack. Things took a different turn on October 2nd when the agreed date of the handover of the house went by without anything happening. She said nothing was communicated to her until she made inquiries, so no one told her. That's when I was told that Mayor Zuma and his team couldn't reach an agreement with the owner of the house. But when I went to the seller, he told me the seller, who'd already offered to lower the price from $900,000, a home that he built, to $700,000 to help her out, saving 200,000 rand. He offered to lower it 200,000. She went to the seller because the mayor didn't tell her anything. And he said the municipality, the ANC municipality, was only offering him 350,000 rand. So the ANC municipality was going to steal 350,000 rand, according to the owner of the house. And he was supposed to sell his house for barely over 1/3 of its value so that ANC politicians could pocket money. The owner of the house confirmed to City Press that he was offered only 350,000 by the politicians. My house is already on property 24. I dropped it from 950,000 to 700,000 because of the urgent condition of the boys. I built it with my hard-earned money, and there was no way I was going to give it away for less than half its value. I want to buy another house, so I had to turn down the offer. She said that when she went back to the mayor for clarity, she was told the ANC decided not to buy the house, but to build her one instead. I feel played and betrayed because people were willing to attend to our house matter urgently, and I held on for the empty promises of the African National Congress. Days turned into weeks, weeks into turn into months, and 6 months later, I'm still in the dark. Kali Mashawana came ready with his crew to take me to a hotel and build the house right in my backyard within 2 weeks. But the mayor blocked the foundation and said he would buy us the house. And she confirmed that Zuma had confirmed that 700,000 rand had been raised for the project. When City Press visited the family this week, Maxona was sitting outside near the toilet at the back of the shack with her two 17-year-old sons, who were seeking a shady spot which could cool their fragile skin, since the shack was unbearably hot. She told the boys to sit behind the shack during the afternoon while waiting for the corrugated iron to cool down. Unbelievable. Asked for comment, the mayor, Zuma, said the handover had been delayed because the 700,000 available funds was not enough. We tried to buy the house, but there was no house for that amount in Bethel. All the houses were going for more than that, so we decided to release adverts for contractors. This is a liar. This is a liar. The gentleman offered 700,000. They have 700,000. They're lying. Thieves. Thieves. He added the money belonged to the ANC, not to the donors. You can quote me on that. It was the ANC's money. He also maintained that council had offered to pay 700,000 house in two installments, 350,000 each. So he lied. He offered 350,000. Now he has the figure, so he's trying to turn around. This is what liars do. They take partial information. Wow. According to the woman, he lied. According to the seller, he lied. Only Zuma has his account. Unbelievable. This is the African National Congress, folks. These are the people they attract to their ranks. Slick willies, thieving, lying bastards who will steal from the mouths of black South Africans, who will prevent these teenage kids who've suffered immeasurably because of a genetic condition which makes their skin fragile in a heated tin shack. When people, out of the goodness of their heart, raised 700,000 rand to buy a home. The homeowner lowered his price, which was listed for 950,000 rand, and offered it for just 700,000 rand, which is the amount of money raised. And now the mayor claims that that money belongs to the African National Congress. You can't make these stories up, folks. You can't make these stories up. Yep. Wow. Interesting. Sad. Pathetic. Not at all surprised. Now, a couple of days ago, I criticized the News 24, Propaganda 24 for going to great lengths to highlight the rubbish problem in the Western Cape, in Cape Town, where contractors haven't picked up trash. Now, the contractors haven't picked up trash because the DA has stolen money or because the DA did not allocate money to pick up trash. The contractors not picked up trash for whatever reason, whether the contractors are crooked or it's dangerous to go in the neighborhood, whatever the reason is. But it's not because of the failures of the Democratic Alliance. Yet Propaganda 24, which has its headquarters in the Central Business District of Cape Town, runs a story intentionally denigrating the Democratic Alliance, not by name, but by inference. They fail to cover the story of what's happening in eThekwini, which is far more egregious and worse. Yeah, those are kind of, one's a degree, one is a statement. Egregious is a statement, worse is a degradation or gradation. So I did show you the video from the gentleman who said, this is the trash. This is all the trash just dumped on the side of the road in eThekwini. Daily Maverick now runs a story on that. So thank you, Daily Maverick, for objective news reporting. eThekwini on the brink of collapse as city struggles with SAMU strike fallout. Look at this. Areas of South Durban that were affected by the municipal strike. Cleanup operations have begun in eThekwini after SAMU told striking workers to resume their duties. However, residents still suffer from a lack of service delivery and the city's troubles appear to be far from over. The Durban municipality resembled ground zero after a 3-week wildcat strike by the South African Municipal Workers Union amid allegations of sabotage and protests by angry residents who had gone without water, electricity, and other basic services. Rubbish piled up and sewage flowed down streets and into rivers. Many areas had neither water nor electricity for days. Some residents continued to dump the refuse, which had not been collected throughout the strike, on landfill sites scattered across the municipality. The strike began February 27th with salary demands similar to those received by workers in other municipalities. Striking workers also allegedly assaulted a municipal worker in Umlazi, leading to her hospitalization. Yeah, so Daily Maverick, a bit late, does cover the story, but Propaganda 24 yet to cover the story to any degree. Johannesburg water system under strain as demand outstrips supply. High temperatures placing pressure on the system as demand continues to rise and bulk water reservoir levels decline at a rapid rate. More incompetence from the ruling African National Congress, which has failed to complete the Highlands Water Project designed during the National Party era, and the first tranche of it was completed just after the corrupt ANC took over governance in South Africa. The rest of the Highlands Water Project left in abeyance as they stole and pocketed the money, knowing full well that eventually there would be too many people in Gauteng and not enough water. Plenty of water in the highlands of Lesotho that could be sent into Johannesburg. But of course, this isn't simply a question of enough water. It's also a question of competence and theft and paying bills. We found out recently that a water valve switch was turned off for 2 weeks. And that's why people didn't get water. Not because there wasn't water. And the idiots that run the water service didn't even know this for 10 days. Well, no one should be afraid, says Jacob Zuma. Remember when he first became the president of South Africa, he went to great lengths to meet with Afrikaner groups to tell them that he respected who they were, who their people were, and their struggle and their cultural rights. As a Zulu, he also believes in cultural rights. Remember that way back when he first became president? Well, now he's making a pitch to try to get votes to his MK party from Afrikaners. Good luck with that, Jay-Z. So no one should fear me. Zuma assures white Afrikaners they'll be safe and urges unity. Under the watch of former President Jacob Zuma's Umkhonto we Sizwe party, Afrikaans white South Africans won't be killed or pushed into the sea. Well, thank you for that. That's very generous of you not to kill people or push them into the sea. The fact that you have to state that says that there is a genuine concern that you would advocate for that. On Saturday, Zuma was on the charm offensive as he addressed the Afrikaner Leaders Forum in Pretoria, joined by infamous Gauteng diamond dealer Louis Liebenberg. Zuma spoke frankly about his time in jail let's be clear about that. Louis Liebenberg and Jacob Zuma are allies, okay? So that's not shocking in of itself. Liebenberg is a close friend, confidant, and ally of Jacob Zuma. So let's be very clear about that, okay? Yeah, he spoke frankly about his time in jail under the Apartheid government. He was questioned whether he would give an order to kill white Afrikaners. He made it clear that South Africa moved beyond that part of its history. The point I want to make is that there has been history that we all went through, not just between black and white, but between black and black. In South Africa, it was not just between black and white, it was between blacks as well. They still have problems. Well, 100%. 100%. Jacob Zuma does hit the nail there. He's correct about that. He said, since the dawn of democracy, his aim was to unite the country. What, for the Guptas? We developed, all of us, from the old days to today. We will always say, let us be together, let us unite. We're not going to kill anyone, not at all. During the armed struggle, there was an agreement. If you arrest, you don't kill. All liberation movements did not come back with peace. We came back with them. This indicates how we're looking at the future. Yeah. But he did warn about socioeconomic issues. He said, even now, if we don't correct some things, it might lead to people saying, let's fight again. That's why I'm saying, let's sit and talk and make our country. I will never kill anyone. Well, you need to end the racist laws in South Africa and allow the economy to flourish, get the government out of the private sector. Well, South Africa gets a glimpse of the multi-party charter post-May elections, and according to this author in Daily Maverick, it's not pretty. That's a very misleading clickbait headline because that's not the gist of the article. The gist of the article is that all these people from political parties spoke at this event, and this is a very misleading headline. I don't know if the author picked it or if the editor picked it, but it's dishonest. If you read the article, that's not what it says. There's Herman Mashaba and Velenkosi Labisa and John Steenhuisen right there on stage. The opposition multi-party charter is not about trust or friendship, but the means to ensure the ANC's vote out of power on May 29th. Action SA leader Herman Mashaba told the big debate on Thursday, the gathering 2024. I'm not in the business of trust. I'm in the business of saving our country from the ANC. It's nothing to do with friendship, with trust. Now, see, that's a very different statement than what the author just said. John Steenhuisen just talked about how the multi-party charter needed to work together before that happened. Then Justice Minister and ANC MP Ronnie Lamola said he would have none of that. He said, as the ANC, we are very clear that we are still the leader of this country and will account to this country. Well, as leader of the country, Ronnie Lamola, thank you for admitting that the ANC has led the country into ruin. The country is a collapsed, failed state, and that's a consequence of 30 years of ANC rule. Well, thank you for sharing that, Ronnie Lamola. Anyone who thought differently was in for a surprise, particularly the IFP, as MK was nibbling at its support. So, unlike the IFP and DA, the ANC was not an unfriendly and untrusting relationship, is what Lamola says. But in fact, that is the case if you look at coalitions. Now, Ronnie Lamola attacks coalitions formed by opposition parties, but ignores the coalitions formed in eThekwini, in Nelson Mandela Bay, in Tshwane, in Johannesburg, with the ANC and parties like the PA, the EFF, and Al Jamaiya, and how they have led to disastrous consequences. Isn't it convenient how politicians ignore the facts? So this is what Lamola said. They can't even agree on who will be the leader. You can't have a coalition like this leading the country. You have to be functionalist. Excuse me? Show me one coalition that the ANC has been involved in at the municipal level that has been functional. Not a single one. Not a single one. They are the epitome of a failed government. Well, in Northwest, a Zimbabwean national got himself a nice job, folks. That is not what we were trying to do. Sorry about that. That's right next to here. I need to move that. So, here we go. Northwest government entity chief financial officer has fraudulent residence permit, says Minister Aaron Motsoaledi. Home Affairs Minister says a criminal case has been opened against Kudukwasha Mpofu, a Zimbabwe national. The chief financial officer of a Northwest government entity who accused the Home Affairs Department of not responding to his court papers is using fraudulent documentation to be in South Africa. His permit to be there was illegal. He was informed in June 23rd of last year that his purported permanent residence permit is actually fraudulent. I'm here to confirm that according to our records, Mr. Mpofu's permanent residence document is fraudulent and is not issued by the Department of Affairs, and so we do not know where he obtained it. So why hasn't he been deported? And how do the ANC allow foreign nationals to be government officials? Government officials. They're not even South African citizens. That's insane. Well, I'm going to actually read this story, folks. Please bear with me. I don't usually read stories. I read a few sentences and comment on them, but this one's necessary. And this story is going to tell you many of the things I've been telling you for many, many months, if not years, about the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, about the unreliable status of South Africa as a partner for the international world and the international order, and its rogue behavior. Well, Fox News, a site I don't rely on often, runs this story by Paul Tilsley. So let me go ahead and get you the story. We are going to talk about it. So South Africa making millions. That's right. South Africa making millions in U.S. benefits while cozying up to Iran. Absolutely. Let me go ahead and show you this one here, folks. Let's get it up on the screen. Just give me a second. There we go. All right. So is it on? There we go. There's a long delay here for me. All right. So I'm going to read from this story. Okay. So please bear with me. So anger rises over South Africa making millions in U.S. South Africa is under fire for spending millions of dollars talking to terror groups and sending delegations for cozy negotiations with U.S. adversaries, Russia and Iran. Some critics say the money would be better spent tackling the chaos back home here in the U.S. South Africa has the highest unemployment rate in the world, rampant crime, and widespread corruption, which has led to large parts of Johannesburg having no water for 10 of the past 11 days, and nationally, power blackouts between 4 and 11 hours a day. The United States helps South Africa gain billions of dollars a year in trade benefits through the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, or AGOA. Ord Kitri, a law professor at Arizona State University and senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, told Fox News Digital it's time for South Africa to be thrown out of the program. Folks, I've been telling you that ever since they introduced the expropriation without compensation legislation in 2018. The ANC-led South African government has, in its relations with both Russia and Hamas, violated the requirement that AGOA beneficiaries not undermine U.S. national security and foreign policy, and with regards to Hamas, violated the requirement that AGOA beneficiaries not provide support for acts of international terrorism, said Kitri, who also served as State Department attorney and policy official. Now, I'm not a State Department attorney or policy official. I was a policy official, but I've told you that South Africa violated the terms, the key tenets of the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act in 2018. By advocating and introducing legislation to steal land from people without compensation. This is not respecting property rights, which is a key tenet of AGOA. Back to the article. The AGOA law's requirements really leave the Biden administration no choice but to terminate South Africa's AGOA benefits unless such activities cease. South Africa continually makes controversial diplomatic moves, including allowing Russian ships to play war games just off its coast, permitting a Russian armed ship, the Lady R, to dock at South African military base. This has attracted the attention of Senator Tim Scott, the ranking Republican of the Senate Subcommittee on Africa and a member of the Senate Subcommittee on Banking. South Africa has harbored sanctioned Russian ships, expanded relations with Iran, and issued statements against Israel's right to defend itself following Hamas's recent terror attacks, said Scott in a recent statement. According to USAID dashboard, Washington gave South Africa $660 million in aid in 2023, which turns out to be on the order of 13 billion rand. Herman Mashaba, president of the Action SA party, told Fox News, the ruling party prioritizes Cold War alliances above the interests of the South African people. I've been telling you that forever. Our close relationship with Russia has jeopardized investment into the country, which has cost jobs, which South Africa cannot risk losing. I've been telling you that. At the same time, 86 people are killed in South Africa every day. Every 11 minutes, a woman is raped. The ruling party has in 30 years been unable to address these crises, instead pays attention to everything except finding solutions to these issues. Not only has the ruling party not addressed them, ladies and gentlemen, as Herman Mashaba indicates, but this situation is demonstrably worse than when they took over. There weren't 86 people per day being killed in 1994. Just a few people per day being killed then. Now it's 86 people per day. State Department weighed in, telling Fox News Israel, Russia is waging a brutal war against the people of Ukraine, and we are constantly working to cut off support and funding for Putin's war machine and undercut Russia's ability to carry out this conflict. We have strongly urged countries not to support Russia's war. On Tehran, the State Department spokesperson noted Iran is an adversary and a leading state sponsor of terrorism. It seeks to sow instability in the Middle East and around the world. We call on all countries to condemn Hamas, as Hamas is a designated terrorist organization and deserves condemnation. Jay Brooks Spector, a former U.S. diplomat and associate director of the Daily Maverick, said South Africa has rarely supported America internationally in grave crises such as the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Beyond AGOA eligibility, South Africa might find itself at risk of seeing major American contributions to PEPFAR, the President's Emergency Program for AIDS Relief, funds combating HIV and AIDS begin to lessen or even end as funds are shifted to other nations. This would be disastrous. Even with support from the U.S., South Africa has the largest HIV epidemic in the world, 7.8 million people. According to the Center for Strategic International Studies. Part of the challenge for South Africa going forward is its desire for a foreign policy strategy that seeks to be a visible player in resolving international disputes far afield from its home continent, such as Ukraine and Gaza, while largely ignoring equally urgent issues near home. And throughout Africa, as I've been telling you, right? The Sahel, Sudan, Tigray, Somalia. South Africa's completely chaotic approach to foreign policy in recent years, said Emma Louise Powell. Powell is a shadow minister for international relations at the DA. Powell criticized the government for getting involved in talks on Israel-Hamas war, given the bloodbath unfolding in South Africa's backyard, on the African continent, and in countries such as Sudan, DRC, and across West Africa. Not to mention the political and economic crisis in neighboring Zimbabwe. South Africa has not even condemned Russia's illegal invasion. This is intellectually dishonest given the funding the ANC has received from Russian-linked oligarchs and companies. We see that this position is leading to South Africa's increasing isolation. Spector added such a mix of behaviors means South Africa risks becoming increasingly irrelevant internationally, both as a country with real political heft and as a valuable investment trade partner with anyone besides China. Then there's systemic corruption. 2 years ago, hundreds of senior politicians and businessmen, mostly linked to the ANC, were accused in the 5,000-page state capture report on links to corruption. Many Washington foreign policy insiders are now for the first time seeing the ANC for what it has sadly become since Mandela's retirement, a party whose rampant financial corruption has impoverished South African people and led it to ally itself with America's enemies, including Russia, Iran, Hamas. What have I been telling you for years? Earlier this week, Senator Tim Scott tweeted, the U.S. cannot continue to simply look the other way when it comes to corruption in South Africa. As we consider AGOA's reauthorization, it's important that we take steps to ensure the program's eligibility requirements are actually enforced. The State Department is so concerned about corruption in South Africa, it sent Fox News Digital an additional statement that some analysts say contains a veiled threat. This is from the State Department. The fight against corruption is a core U.S. national security interest. The United States considers the use of several foreign policy tools for countering corruption, including but not limited to financial sanctions. Beyond this, it is the policy of the United States to not comment on the internal deliberations regarding the use of sanctions or to preview potential actions. The ANC, U.S. officials are noting the ANC is not itself holding its corrupt officials accountable. Yeah, with ANC-led South African government reportedly making no significant progress in prosecuting South African officials who were bribed, and most recently, the ANC placing several corruption-tainted officials on its list for re-election. Herman Mashaba added it's unacceptable that 2 years after the state capture report was submitted, not a single high-profile individual has been successfully prosecuted or even charged. Last week, Jabba the Hutt and Lady Pandor announced that South Africans with dual nationality who are fighting for Israel will be arrested when they return. But they didn't say anything about Ukraine. He said, we are ready. When you come home, we'll arrest you. Yet when the Iraqi ambassador here claimed that as many as 300 South Africans had left to take up arms for a terror group, Islamic State, in 2015, there were no such public threats or arrest of returning fighters. Exactly. Analysts predict Foreign Minister Pandor could face some tough questions during a visit to Washington. Anyway, there you have it. So, yep, there you have it. That's making the news here in the States now. It's about time. It's long overdue. All right, let me get back to the chat, and then I'll get back to the news. When your days are numbered, but you can't count, Jay-Z, okay? Leave BE's evil, and I listened to Herman Mashaba the other day on BE Take, which is low-interest funding. Is this an acceptable compromise? Well, low-interest funding is possible, but not when your economy is in the crapper. Otherwise, the taxpayer is funding it. And you cannot make low-interest loans to people that are not credit-worthy. So, for instance, America has long monkeyed with its home ownership marketplace, with the government intruding into home ownership. For instance, veterans qualify for a Veterans Administration-backed loan, what that means is that as a veteran, I don't have to prove that I have, savings. I don't have to put any down payment down for a home. That's unusual to buy a home. Every veteran, whether they serve 2 years or 40 years, qualifies for this with the Veterans Administration, as long as they have an honorable discharge. So, veterans can go to the Veterans Administration to sponsor a loan for them, which allows them to go into the marketplace to banks and get a lower interest rate because the banks are guaranteed that if the veteran does not pay back the loan, the Veterans Administration will pay the loan. Now, the veteran will lose the house probably, but that means the banks don't take a risk. Therefore, they can they can make loans at lower interest rates. Now, one can argue about whether that's appropriate or not, and that's a fair argument. But that is a way to pay back veterans for their service to the nation. And that's how that came about. I myself received a veterans-backed loan. The key advantage for me is I didn't have to put any money down. It really didn't affect my interest rate because my credit was sterling and I got one of the lowest rates, if not the lowest rate that was currently available in the marketplace when I purchased my home. But that's because of me and my credit history, not because I was a veteran. I got the loan backed by the government and they were all too happy to make the loan. But the interest rate was not because of that. It was because of my credit history. So veterans, if I'd been a veteran with not such a strong credit history, would have gotten the loan because they would have taken the risk, but I would have been paying a higher interest rate and paying more interest. Anyway, that's one way where they monkey with things. If you're going to make loans to people, you have to ensure that they're credit-worthy risk. You can make, I didn't hear what Herman Mashaba said, but if he's talking about making business loans to people, they need to be a credible risk. And that can be difficult to adjudicate when people have no history, but not impossible. So I'm not sure what Herman Mashaba was talking about, but I suspect that's where he was going with it. They beg for billions, yet the people never see it. Remember the missing five? Yeah, the COVID money, yep. Christine Feidemann says, African Mampars with no vision or understanding, indoctrinated by the communists. Yep, spot on. Okay, Sedgefield's here, double, triple compensation. What's that? Okay, what else we got here? Erica says, concerned the ANC cadres won't accept to defeat the polls and step down. Mugabe showed them how to do that. Exactly right. We are headed for a crisis if the ANC refuses to step aside. Where's Kwite Kunavale? Kwite Kunavale. It's in Angola. You know that. Mainly do the ANC, but not exclusively. Andre says, a stupid person is that person who causes loss or hurt and damage, including themselves. Okay. No politician in the USA is going to condemn the ANC harshly or publicly except Larry Elder and or Candace Owens. Well, Tim Scott did. They'll get labeled as a bigot. Most blacks do listen to me when I talk about the referendum and the current corruption, but I usually get, you have a point and you make a lot of sense. Okay? I also get, you're never going to completely understand because you're a white dude. Yeah, well, that's just racist. That's just racist, and it's also uninformed stupidity. You're never going to understand because you're a white dude. Do they think that white people have never suffered oppression? White people have never been enslaved? Really? White people have never been the victims of bigotry? Anyone that assumes that they have special status because of their skin color is either uninformed, a bigot, or a racist. It's simple as that. You're not going to understand. Really. Really. All right. I'm not going to detail and regale folks of all the times that I've been a victim of racism or racist policies. Hey, Julie Russell, welcome to you. All right, let's get back to the news, folks. So we've swayed away from for a few moments there. Let me get back to where it's at. Right, so major fire devastates Felipe in South Africa. Felipe, gift of the givers and authorities are responding. Yasmin Jacobs reports destructive fire ravaged parts of Felipe. Look at those informal settlements going up. Horrible. This happened today, displacing hundreds of residents and causing extensive damage to informal structures. There were no injuries or fatalities. That's a shocker. That's good news, though. Spokesperson for the City of Cape Town's Fire and Rescue Service, Jermaine Carlay, confirmed that the emergency response initiated at 2:45 in the morning with reports of informal structures ablaze. We deployed a total of 13 firefighting resources with over 40 firefighters battling the blaze. Efforts to contain and extinguish the fire persisted through the early hours, with firefighters finally containing and extinguishing the fire at 8:40. While they managed to extinguish it, the city reported that more than 100 informal structures were destroyed, leaving over 400 individuals displaced from their homes. The cause of the fire is yet to be determined, and law enforcement was deployed to ensure crowd control. Gift of the Givers is currently on site with the Maungang informal settlement in Felipe East, where a significant number of structures were destroyed by the fire. Wow. That's crazy. Well, finally, a news organization talks about the financial status of the African National Congress, and it's not News 24, surprise, surprise. It's not the Daily Maverick, that is a surprise. It's actually City Press, which is part, of course, the NASPER's orbit. But surprisingly, they're talking about the cash-strapped ANC. I've been asking this question for weeks. Why is no one asking about the ANC's sudden wealth? Well, desperate in need of funding as it battles to pay campaign material. The ANC has been hit by yet another financial crunch ahead of the national elections scheduled for May 29th. Although the party has started deploying its top personnel on campaign trails, including door-to-door canvassing and community meetings across the country, it is yet to put up posters, banners, and advertisements since the announcement of the election date. Several members of the ANC's National Executive Committee said the party had no money to do so. The party is in dire need of serious funding for the election campaign. Some NEC members are calling for a vote of no confidence in the Treasurer General. Wow. Officials weren't happy that since the declaration of the election date, the party hasn't yet started creating election material like T-shirts, banners, and posters. Wow. They have no advertisements on radio or TV. But it's because they have no money. They need to go back to Tehran, ask them for money. Well, South Africa's Antarctica possession is flooded with rodents. No, not ANC corrupt caters, but real rodents, folks. Genuine rodents. Mice. Mice have overrun a remote island and are feasting on seabirds. Now they face extermination. Conservationists are planning to exterminate mice on Marion Island, where the population has soared to more than 1 million as climate change has raised temperatures. 1 million out-of-control mice that are feasting on seabirds and causing havoc on a remote island are to be exterminated. The whiskered rodents were accidentally introduced 200 years ago and are breeding wildly as climate change raises temperatures. Conservation is taking drastic action on the tiny island situated in the sub-Antarctic Indian Ocean between Antarctica and South Africa with no margin for error. The mouse-free Marion Project, pest control on a grand scale, will see up to 6 helicopters drop 550 tons of rat poison across the island. But if even one pregnant mouse survives, their prolific breeding ability means they will have been all for nothing. Island is home to globally significant population of nearly 30 bird species and a rare undisturbed habitat for wandering albatrosses with a 100-foot wingspan. Undisturbed, at least until Stowaway House, mice arrived on seal hunter ships in the early 1800s, introduced the island's first mammal predators. So why don't we introduce hawks or falcons? They love to eat mice. Couldn't they survive on that island with the weather changes? I don't know. But they're going to poison the island. I'm sure that won't go well for the bird population either. Mauritius launches an Indian-funded airstrip on Agalega and denies it's going to be a military base. An investigation by news broadcaster Al Jazeera back in 2021 said India was building a secret naval base, much to the chagrin of its 300 inhabitants. The report of the base raised fears of a repeat of the 1965 decision by the UK to separate Chagos from Mauritius and set up a military base called Diego Garcia. Here's an aerial view of Agalega Islands, 2 islands in the Indian Ocean governed by Mauritius. Mauritius inaugurated on Thursday an Indian-financed airstrip and jetty on the island, but denied it would be used for military purposes. Well, it can be used for military purposes. It's going to kill a lot of wildlife, not just the mice. South Sudan is closing schools due to extreme heat wave. South Sudan bracing for heat wave, temperatures soaring to 45 degrees Celsius. Schools are expected to close during the week, with government officials warning parents to prevent their children from playing outside. Heat waves are becoming increasingly common in the East African country, which is particularly vulnerable to climate change, but temperatures rarely exceed 40 degrees. So, no school in South Sudan because it's too hot. There you go. Schools closed in South Sudan as they prepare for the heat wave. Well, look where people are living. In shacks, in tents. Looks a lot like parts of South Africa. South Sudan's government is closing down all schools starting Monday as the country prepares for a wave of extreme heat that is suspected to last for 2 weeks. No school. Well, Joe Biden's inept, corrupt, idiotic foreign policy has now led to the collapse of U.S. security policy in Sahel throughout the region. As Niger's military junta, an illegitimate, illicit, criminal, rogue government that overthrew a democratically elected government, Mohamed Bazoum, Niger's first ever ethnic Arab to lead the country. They have now suspended security relations with the United States on a pretext, which is bogus to say the least. The argument was that the United States sent the commander of Africa Command, a State Department official, to Niger, and they failed to get diplomatic approval or notification. This is implausible. Absolutely implausible. I have worked in dozens of embassies. I have been responsible for country clearances and overflight clearances for our aircraft. You have to get an overflight clearance to fly over a country, whether you're going to land there or not. So every military aircraft that goes to Botswana, for instance, has to get overflight clearance usually from Algeria, Nigeria, Cameroon, all the way down the continent. You have to get approval on all these for overflight. The fact that Niger's military junta claims that the U.S. government did not get diplomatic protocol clearance seems highly unlikely and suspicious. Having been stationed in Niger, having handled these country clearances myself personally, I know that this seems unlikely, to say the very least. They're claiming they just showed up and didn't announce to the Nigerian government they're coming. That's utterly ridiculous. General officers don't visit Africa simply to visit U.S. personnel or embassies. They visit to cultivate relations with African governments and militaries. Why would they not tell them they're coming? Anyway, Joe Biden's idiotic foreign policy, his cowardly withdrawal from Afghanistan, his failure to condemn or take deterrent action against Vladimir Putin moving 70,000 troops to the border with Ukraine in the summer of 2021, 7-8 months before the invasion, his ineptitude in failing to respond to the military junta overthrowing the democratically but thoroughly corrupt government of Myanmar 9 days after becoming president, his failure to address the crisis in the Sahel, in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Niger, in Nigeria, in Somalia, in Tigray, the Rohingya in Myanmar, the Uyghurs in China. He has proven himself to be a feckless, incompetent foreign policy leader. And now the latest. This is a disaster for security and for people throughout the Sahel who will suffer terrible fates as a consequence of what's going on. Folks, I have to answer my door. Please give me a moment. I'll be right back. Please don't leave. Sorry about that. So we lost 2 viewers. Thank you for staying the 88 who stayed. A young lady came and knocked on my door, rang my doorbell. She was at a party somewhere in the neighborhood here. I didn't know there was a party last night. And she's a teenager. She lost her iPhone. And so she said, it's pinging here. It's iPhone here. I mean, the party wasn't here, so I don't know. Anyway, but probably throwing off false signals. So anyway, yeah, I used to usually play music for this Bebop Williams. But the young lady lost it. Let me just make a note of, she did say who her mother is, so I can, if anyone does find it. Whoops, if anyone does find it, they can tell her where it's at. Wow, I know that sucks. She lost her phone. It probably sucks more for her mother, who probably had to buy the phone. But yeah, it's just sad. Many Afrikaners simply protected species of birds. This is awful. Yeah, live doorbell, how refreshing. It happens a lot, Debbie. I just ignore it normally. But with events going on now, I tend to answer it. What kills you, Julie? With their killing the mice? Guinea 2, colonial colonel. Yeah. Anyway, I was talking about Niger. So Joe Biden's failed foreign policy has now caused Niger. Now 3 more people left after I came back. That's not good. Anyway, Joe Biden's foreign policy has caused Niger to evict America from the place where we spent $115 million building an airbase for Niger. By the way, the leftists were always whining that the Americans are using this airbase to interfere in the Sahel. Never mind the fact that we're interdicting terrorists and smugglers on behalf of the countries in the Sahel and the residents of Sahel, protecting the security, and that the reason the base is there is not for us, it's for Niger, but they lack the funds to maintain it, so they asked us to stay. Well, now they're going to kick us out, and the $115 million the American government has invested in building an airbase in Agadez is wasted because it will not be maintained. It will revert to the Sahel and desert. What a sad situation this is. Announcement by Nigerian junta deals blow to U.S. efforts to fight insurgents and contain Russia. The military junta, now ruling Niger illegally, once America's foremost counterterrorism partner in Sahel, said it's ending its military cooperation with the U.S., dealing a severe blow to Washington's efforts to contain a sprawling Islamist insurgency and maintain Western influence. The decision, which junta spokesman Colonel Major Amadou Abderrahmane said with immediate effect, could affect $110 million base built by the U.S. and used to fly surveillance drones over West Africa, as well as 1,000 American troops stationed in the country. The American presence of the Territorial Republic of Niger is illegal, he said in a statement read on state television. Actually, that's factually a lie. It's not illegal. You have a status of forces agreement. You invited us there. We have an agreement that's not illegal. You're a liar. You're a liar, liar, liar. You may not want us there anymore, and you can revoke it, but it's not illegal. You're a liar. Yeah, the Biden administration has been working to salvage relationship with Niger since the military illicitly overthrew Mohamed Bazoum. Yep. He said the government of Niger rejects the will of the American delegation to deny the sovereign Nigerian people the right to choose their partners and types of partnerships capable of helping it truly fight against terrorism. You know what? You are welcome to do what you want to do there, and the Nigerian people will suffer as a consequence. It is time to end all foreign assistance to Niger, the health aid, the economic aid, all of it. The government strongly denounced this condescending attitude accompanied by the threat of reprisals on the part of the head of the American delegation towards the government and the Nigerian people. They're not reprisals. We don't have to give you anything, jerk off. We don't have to give you anything. It's not a reprisal. You end the relationship, which is for the benefit of your people and people in the region, and you make lies against the United States government. That's not a reprisal. We'd be stupid to give you money. Bye. Good luck. See how Burkina Faso does without help. Over the past decade, the U.S. has spent $500 million arming Niger's military with everything from tents and radios to surveillance planes and armored personnel carriers. Yep. So, good luck, Niger. You think you're going to get that from Russia? Good luck. Gambian parliament is lifting a ban on female genital mutilation. This is pretty frightening. In 2015, former President Yahya Jammeh's Women's Amendment Act banned female genital mutilation. 46% of girls aged 14 and younger in the Gambia have undergone this disfiguration. Islamic clerics say the practice is not just merely inherited custom, but one of the virtues of Islam, so it must be practiced. No, it's not a virtue of Islam. That's a lie. What Islamic cleric made, that has nothing to do with Islam. This is a cultural practice. It has nothing to do with Islam. It's a lie. The Gambian parliament will vote on a bill to reverse the ban of female genital mutilation, which rights groups say mark a return to women's rights violations in the largely Muslim West African country. Carrying out the procedure is punishable up to 3 years in prison, a fine of 14,000 rand, or both, where female genital mutilation causes death, life imprisonment. When 3 Gambian women were found practicing female genital mutilation on several children last year, the country was divided. An Islamic cleric paid the fines imposed, the Gambia Supreme Islamic Council issued a fatwa declaring female genital mutilation is not just merely inherited custom, but one of the virtues of Islam. It's not a virtue of Islam. That's a lie. Show me that in the Quran. That's a cultural tradition. It's nothing to do with Islam. These are people who are denigrating the faith of Islam with their lies about the tenets of it. Well, the European Union is giving Egypt $8 billion, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. Look at that. Graduate of the Army War College, President Al-Sisi sitting right there, U.S. Army War College graduate, with Ursula von der Leyen, and Lion she is. European Union announced an $8 billion aid package for cash-strapped Egypt amid concerns that economic pressure and conflicts and chaos in neighboring countries could drive more migrants to European shores. Grants and loans over the next 3 years for the Arab world's most populous country. Interesting. $8 billion. Wow. Well, a ceasefire. These talks are underway between Israel and Hamas. They're expected to resume today. See how they went. Stalled talks aimed at securing a ceasefire are expected to resume in earnest in Qatar today. Talks will mark the first time both Israeli and Hamas leaders joined the indirect negotiations since the start of Ramadan. International mediators had hoped to secure a 6-week truce before the Muslim holy month began, and they failed. Well, the founder, the man who invented the concept of karaoke, has passed away at the age of 100. Shigechi Negishi, the inventor of karaoke, dies at 100 years of age. Shigechi Negishi, known as one of the inventors of karaoke, died of natural causes on January 26th, according to the Wall Street Journal. He was 100. He was the first to automate and commercialize the sing-along in 1967, although he never patented his creation, unfortunately. His Sparko box first came to the market in 1967, is recognized as the earliest karaoke machine by the All Japan Karaoke Industrialist Association. He's also the first among 5 Japanese inventors who independently created karaoke machines from 1967 to 1971. Another man is more often widely credited for inventing the karaoke machine. That's Daisuke Inoue, a Japanese musician, released the 8-jute karaoke machine to the market in 1971. But it was Negishi, the founder of a company that assembled consumer electronics such as transistor radios, who liked to sing along with television and radio shows. In 1967, came up with the idea of wiring a microphone, a speaker, and a tape deck recorder, and playing an instrumental recording of a song. Seeing the commercial potential of the device, he eventually placed 8,000 of these boxes, Sparko boxes, around Japan. Yep, but he never patented his invention and gave up on the market a decade later. In Iceland, the volcano has erupted again, not getting much attention. Authorities said the eruption Saturday night was the most powerful in a series that started back in December. Lava flowed from volcanic eruption on the Reykjanes Peninsula southwest of Reykjavik. The volcano erupted with little notice in southern Iceland Saturday night, the latest in a string of eruptions in the area, threatening local infrastructure and leading authorities to declare a state of emergency. Lava fountains burst out of the ground. Nearly 2-mile-long fissure opened up on the peninsula at 8:30, according to the Icelandic Meteorological Office. The eruption occurred near the town of Grindavik, the Svartsengi power plant, and the Blue Lagoon, one of Iceland's most famous tourist attractions. The Meteorological Office said that it received indications of possible eruption only 40 minutes before it happened, and they sent out its first warning moments before the eruption began. Of course, Grindavik is a town that's been largely abandoned because of this sad stuff. In Russia, elections are underway, and Russian voters are answering Navalny's call to protest Putin's forever rule. On the final day of presidential election, only one possible result. Russians protested Vladimir Putin's authoritarian hold on power by forming long lines to vote against him at noon Sunday, answering the call of opposition leader Alexei Navalny, who had urged the midday action before dying suddenly in prison last month. The noon against Putin protests, with voters forming queues outside polling stations in cities like Moscow, St. Petersburg, Ekaterinburg, Chelyabinsk, Tomsk, Novosibirsk, was a striking, if futile, display of solidarity and dissent designed to counteract the tyrannical rule of Vladimir Putin. Good luck with that, folks. Media reacts to Ireland winning its back-to-back Six Nations championship. That wasn't a good Ireland team. That wasn't a good Scotland performance. Scottish media praised their defensive effort, but rue the lack of creativity against Ireland. Indeed. Like a tired horse in a long NT run-in, Ireland stumbled over the finish line, winning the Six Nations over Scotland after a 17-13 victory, which highlighted it was not a classic performance. Michael Alwyn called it an anticlimax for the neutral at least. An unconvincing performance. Far from motivated to bounce back from that surprise defeat at Twickenham, they seemed disoriented by it. Irish flatness was not confined to the field. The faithful in the stadium were just as subdued in the first half, but crowds have a symbiotic relationship with the team. Ireland duly upped the pace at the second period, and we had our inferno again. Ireland had done enough. There's Josh van der Fleer driving through the Scottish defense. Yeah, in the second half. England and France put on a barn burner. France wins 33-21 in front of a jumping crowd that helped captivate the final contest of the Six Nations. Six Nations crowd will have to wait another year for France. But any talk of revolt has been mostly dismissed. In a tournament threatened to send in disaster, France has ultimately finished as Ireland's closest challengers again as Thomas Ramos' long-range penalty in the final minute snatch victory in a riotous night in Lyon. In spite of the rivalry meant this was never likely to be a drab championship affair, but few could have expected something contested quite so much action and animosity. So they're celebrating St. Patrick's Day in Ireland, but the French end on a good note. Turning our attention to North America, Donald Trump makes it clear that he will axe every open border policy of the corrupt Biden regime on day one. Former President Trump has vowed to move very fast with his agenda if elected, including ending President Biden's open border policies on day one. Former President Trump said on a Saturday rally, if elected in November, he would move quickly to fix a host of problems plaguing the country, including using executive power to free January 6 hostages and ending every single open border policy of the Biden regime on day one after taking office. The former president opened his March 16th rally in Dayton with a standing salute to January 6 hostages while recording a Pledge of Allegiance played in the background. They've been treated terribly and unfairly, and we're going to be working on that soon on the first day we get in office. Dozens of January 6 detainees are still languishing in prison awaiting trial over 3 years after the Capitol incident. President Trump has previously vowed to free any from prison those involved as one of his very first acts. There you go. Wow, Trump makes promises. Will he follow through? Well, a COVID-era suppression of the First Amendment is before the Supreme Court finally. Let's hope they make the right decision here. Justices consider whether federal officials unlawfully pressured tech companies to suppress posts opposed to jabs. When Hank Aaron died in 2021, Robert Kennedy Jr. suggested in a tweet that the baseball legend's death was caused by the jab. The next day, a White House employee asked Twitter, known as X, to take down Kennedy's post, wondering if we can get moving on the process for having it removed ASAP. This is a clear violation of the First Amendment. The federal government has no authority to interfere in freedom of speech. That was Robert Kennedy's right to offer his opinion, and the federal government had no authority to pressure a tech company to censor that individual. They did so. Yep. The Supreme Court will decide this week, they're hear cases this week about that. Well, he's lost my vote, so says Democratic voter. Many Irish Americans are turning against Biden over the Gaza war. A series of protests on St. Patrick's Day points to the threat Biden faces from a loss of a key vote in swing states. One evening in 2004, when John Francis Mulligan, a retired U.S.-born Irish citizen, was in the West Bank, a stranger asked him to walk her to a funeral. It was after curfew in Nablus, and Palestinians weren't allowed on the streets. The young man had been killed earlier that day, and because of religious beliefs, his family needed to bury him within 24 hours. But if they went outside, the Israeli armed forces would open fire on them for violating curfew. The dead man's mother asked Mulligan, "Can you march with us? Can you stand at the front of our family? Because we're not going to shoot you. You're white." I just need someone literally to stand with me. This moment, the struggle to bury the dead in peace hit home for Mulligan, who went to primary school in Northern Ireland during the Troubles in the 70s. It felt to me very much like going into political funerals in the north of Ireland, where helicopters would be overhead. In that case, it was the British Army, and here it was the Israeli Army. It really resonated. Mulligan points to these parallels as part of the reason he's rallying with other Irish Americans in the U.S. to support Gaza. I can recognize colonial oppression, colonial state violence because of a childhood in Ireland, says Mulligan. Now in Palestine, they're dehumanizing people, they're criminalizing resistance, they're criminalizing complete population and using starvation as a tactic. Yeah, John Mulligan, you're full of crap. You're totally full of crap. You're so full of crap. Let me see if your eyes are brown. So full of crap. Yeah. Nobody was criminalizing anybody in Gaza. Nobody was oppressing anybody in Gaza. Nobody was censoring them. Nobody was shutting them down. Hundreds of thousands of Gazans entered Israel and worked on a daily basis, earning their incomes and bringing money back to the destitute Hamas-run state of Gaza. Hamas terrorists murdered Israeli citizens and other nationals in the most gruesome fashion in a terror attack on October 7th. Stop pretending that never happened, John Mulligan. You're a liar. Well, President Biden, back on his amphetamines, apparently is roasting Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis at the Gridiron Club dinner. Yeah. Biden used his appearance at the Gridiron on Saturday to rib President Trump and turn the tables on Ron DeSantis. One candidate is too old, mentally unfit to be president. The other's me, said the 81-year-old Biden in a 10-minute speech. The jabs came as Biden and his campaign have sought to put more of a spotlight on Trump's verbal flubs and flagrant mishaps. Early in the week, both Trump and Biden locked down enough delegates to clinch their nominations. So Biden said, even the press has to admit, I crushed it in his State of the Union address. The expectations were so low, I just had to show up and remember who the president was. That's actually funny, but it's sad that he has to say that. Yeah. So he also said the Republicans would rather fail at impeachment than concede anything else. He said Republicans are doing a skit tonight, but they couldn't get a speaker. And he even took an attack on Ron DeSantis. He said, we're committed to helping the little guy, said Joe. But Ron DeSantis won't take our calls. Ooh, wow. Joe Biden. Entertaining. Funny. Who's writing the lines for Joe? All right, folks. Biden, the Democratic Party, raised $53 million in February. Boy, that puts to death the lies about the Republican Party being the party of big business. We all know that Democrats have long been the party of big business. That is not even remotely surprising. President Joe Biden's campaign and its connected fundraising organizations raised $53 million in February, giving them $155 million in the bank at the end of last month. Now, of course, the Democrats have long said that the Republicans are the parties of big business, and I broke that myth back in 2008 by pointing out the tens of millions of dollars that Barack Obama got from Wall Street investment firms, from banks, from corporations, while John McCain barely pulled in $5 million from the same organizations. And he lied about John McCain saying he was a tool of big business. It's actually the Democrats that are tools of big business. Let me make this very clear why that's the case. Democrats love big business. Big business loves Democrats. Do you know why? Because big business uses the government through lobbying and its Democratic members of the House and Senate and the rhinos to pass legislation that cripples small business, which is the engine of growth here in the United States and in Germany. They cripple small businesses who are competitors to save them to trouble of actually innovating or reducing their prices to compete with competitors who are more efficient and more effective. So big business loves big government. Don't be fooled by the nonsense from the Democrats. They love big business, and that's why big business and unions give them lots of money for the corrupt deal to allow businesses to accumulate monopolies and oligarchies in sectors of the economy. I mean, ask yourself this. Why do we devote 60% of our maize crop to producing ethanol, which gives us at best 105% return on the energy? It's ludicrous. It's dangerous for the environment. All the nitrogen and phosphorus poured onto the soil throughout the Midwest and Plain States, leached off the soil, washed into the watershed, down the Mississippi and Missouri, into the Gulf of Mexico, creating algae blooms, destroying ecosystems, to grow maize, to turn into corn sugar fuel. Why? Because big business is in bed with rhinos and Democrats and has been for decades. That's the bottom line. They love big business. And that's why Joe Biden got $53 billion. His approval rating is 37% amongst American voters. 37%. Do you think that the 63% of the people who are angry at Joe Biden are donating to his campaign? Especially when they're limited. Their freedom of speech is constrained by McCain-Feingold. But this dark money coming in from corporations and PACs, political action committees, comes in by the tens of millions with virtually no oversight or regulation, as the Constitution was violated when it comes to supporting candidates. Joe Biden made a fortune. Well, let's talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This isn't entirely her doing, but this is where she is elected to office, just like Nancy Pelosi in the street corner toilet bowl of San Francisco. AOC's New York City district slammed as a third world. A shocking video shows trash-covered streets overrun by migrants running flea market and scantily clad prostitutes brazenly soliciting men at the Market of Sweethearts. AOC's district being described as looking like a third world country after video emerged showing trash-covered streets overrun by migrants. Footage captured by Queens resident Ramses Frias shows two streets in the neighborhood of Corona, Jackson Heights, and Elmhurst. The video shows the streets there overflowing with trash as criminal alien invaders set up makeshift flea markets as if they're in I don't know, Kinshasa. Roosevelt Avenue has also become known as the market of sweethearts, with viral videos showing alleged sex workers lighting the streets. There you go. There's footage of people just setting up street vendors selling clothes. There's AOC. Speaking to Fox News, he said, like most of my like-minded residents, we see this as the third world market. You see clothes thrown across the floor. The items are stolen from donation bins or stolen from stores, and they just set up shop outside brick-and-mortar business. The takeaway trade from these businesses don't pay taxes. There are no repercussions. They get a free pass. Yep. As the clip ends, a group of people can be seen with a stall covering a pedestrian crossing with boxes covering the road. Yep. Here are the prostitutes just standing around the streets selling their bodies. There are the clothes stolen from donation bins and stores being sold in street markets, not paying taxes. And there's AOC with the corrupt governor of New York, Kathy Hochul. There's more street prostitutes. It's a Class B misdemeanor, punishable with 3 months in jail or a $500 fine. But these women are selling the wares right there in the open in broad daylight. New York Police Department raided 6 establishments allegedly engaging in prostitution. At the time, Adams said sex trafficking is real and we're not going to sit idly by and pretend it's not happening. Yet this happens every single day in Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's district in broad daylight in front of law enforcement, and the city of New York and Eric Adams take no action against it. No action whatsoever against it. Well, an African Hub, which is a social media site, tries to criticize the U.S. about how it lets people in with its race hustling lies. And let's talk about this, all right? African Hub says it seems having a passport and proper documentation at the airport makes people appear more suspicious than crossing in millions on the borders without passports or any sort of documentation. Now, this is a race hustling effort by African Hub. It's a Twitter site. Let me find it here for you real quick, the African Hub. All right? Here is what they had to say. So there is African Hub. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. So African Hub, here you go. They have 261,000 followers, and they're into race baiting. Let's get back to the race baiting story. So, here you go. You didn't see that. So here's the African Hub. Right there. There's the African Hub for you to see. That's their Twitter account, @ at African Hub _. Apparently there was another African Hub. So I don't know if they're misrelating to it. It says, on March 10th, Twitter content creator African Hub shared a video clip of a Nigerian national being questioned at an unnamed airport by U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers. African Hub speculated the Border Police unfairly targeting the individual, of course, because he's black and African. Simply a lie. That's misleading. While the post received several hundred likes and reports of dozens of thousands of views, it shows the opposite of an unfair targeting by U.S. Customs and Border Patrol personnel. African Hub only shared a small part of the video to suit its version of the events. The video apparently was shot in 2019. It shows a passenger identified as Abdullah telling Border Patrol officers he's arriving in the United States from Nigeria and is headed to Lake Tahoe, Nevada to represent my ministry at the AACE Conference 2019. Now, the AACE is the Association for the Advancement of Cost Engineering. Abdullah tells the officers that he works as a senior engineer at the Ministry of Petroleum Resource in Nigeria. However, a quick examination of his documentation reveals that his job identification badge expired in 2018, a year prior. So, the customs official holds up the badge and shows it on the camera. Expiry date, December 31st, 2018. So he was not an official. According to U.S. State Department, anyone attending a conference or seminar must provide a valid invitation letter from the host when applying for a visa. On March 10th, TikTok user Crazy World posted a full version of the video, which included video footage revealing that Abdullah was not employed by the Nigerian government. And this is what it said. You have no idea that we were going to actually call the Nigerian government to verify if you were a government official. And they stated that they don't know anything about you or your officers coming. That's what the border official told Mr. Abdullah. African Hub did not inform its followers that Abdullah had faked the conference invitation letter. The immigration officers contacted this convention. They don't know who your team is. You are not registered at the convention, said the Customs Border. So how did you get this letter? So these race hustlers seek to show America's racist because a Border Patrol agent is doing the minimum to confirm that the person has business in America. This is an illegal immigrant seeking to violate our sovereignty and come in our country with a fake letter and fraudulent documentation. And this Twitter website, lies. So, Abdullah continued to proclaim his innocence, saying, "I'm not lying. I will never lie in my life. I can never lie in my life," as he stands there and lies. He was denied entry with a customs official telling him, "Mr. Abdullah, honestly, I'm sorry. I don't believe you. We find you inadmissible because this letter you are presenting is not real, and the visa that you presented will be canceled today." Yep. So there you go. There you go. Criminal aliens trying to violate the law and race-hustling Twitter accounts trying to lie about America. Well, Ryan Reynolds, you know him, the actor. His payments processor is nearing a buyout deal. Nuve, the Canadian payments processor, backed by celebrity entrepreneur Ryan Reynolds, is nearing a buyout deal. Private equity firm Advent International is in advanced talks for Nuve for a transaction that could be announced soon, according to people familiar with the matter. The talks could still fall apart before a deal is reached. Given Nuve's current market capitalization of about 4.1 billion Canadian dollars, that's 3 billion US, it could qualify as one of the larger recent private equity deals at a time when the activity is muted as a result of higher interest rates and other factors. So Ryan Reynolds about to cash out and make himself a fortune. Well, Chicago turns green for St. Patrick's Day as they light up the river, once again with food dye. With green and glee, major U.S. parade marks St. Patrick's Day a little bit early. People across the United States celebrate Irish heritage at several major St. Patty's Day parades on Saturday, marking the holiday a day early at events that included a big anniversary in Savannah, Georgia, and honoring a pioneering female business leader as Grand Marshal in New York. The holiday commemorates Ireland's patron saint, who was popularized largely by Irish Catholic immigrants. While St. Patrick's Day falls on March 17th, some parades were moving up from Sunday, a day of worship for the faithful. Manhattan's St. Patrick's Day Parade, which dates to 1762, 14 years before the Declaration of Independence, is one of the world's largest Irish heritage festivities. There you go. Yep, there you go. Houston, New York, Chicago, all over the country, people celebrate. More Irish in America than Ireland by a factor of 10. Robert Kennedy Jr. is apparently naming his running mate, wealthy attorney Nicole Shanahan, for his presidential bid. Here he is, and there she is. The official announcement will be on March 26 in Oakland. Shanahan, 38-year-old, told the New York Times last month she'd given $4 million to the super PAC American Values to fund the $7 million 30-second Super Bowl commercial that ran for his campaign. While claiming to not be an anti-jabber, she said she shared Kennedy's constant attacks on vaccines and also describes herself as a progressive who cares about children's health. Well, there's his running mate. Shanahan. Doesn't look very Irish to me. Well, migrants draws jail time. Right down the street from where I live, folks. Right down the street here in Cumberland County, Pennsylvania. Migrant draws jail time for threatening to kill Biden and Trump. A Somali immigrant in Cumberland County, Pennsylvania, was slapped with a 3-year prison sentence for telling police he wanted to kill Biden and Trump. Mohammed Farah, a 34-year-old, came to the United States as a refugee, amassed a lengthy history of criminal entanglements, mental health hospital stays, and drug use, is awaiting deportation. While he was awaiting deportation during the pandemic, he got released from Homeland Security's custody. He went on to threaten 2 presidents during a mental health episode in 2022, saying in the case of Biden, he would kill him literally dead. And for Trump, I'm going to be at his campaign and dedicate my life to killing him. Anyway, Mr. Farah has learned a lot from this incident. Learned a lot from this incident. He was brought from Somalia when he was 2 in 1992. Well, he went to Kenya first. Anyway, give me a break. So this is what we import into our country, this sort of problem. Well, a teen learns his fate for the horrific murder of an immigrant Senegalese family in a horrible home fire as a result of someone's phone being stolen, purportedly. Teen learns fate for senseless blaze that killed Denver family of 5, including a toddler and infant. One of the 3 teens who killed 5 Senegalese family members, including a baby and a toddler, when he set ablaze their Denver home, was sentenced to 40 years behind bars. Gavin Seymour, 19, was handed the maximum possible term for second-degree murder charge after dozens of grieving family members spoke against the murderous teen. He pled guilty last month to setting fire to the house in the middle of the night in August of 2020, killing Jibril, 29, his wife, Adja Jibril, 23, their daughter, Kajia Jibril, 1, along with Jibril's sister, Hassan Jibril, 25, and her 6-month-old daughter, Hawa Baye. Even if you kill 5 sheep or goats, you should get a maximum sentence, said Diol, the father. This person here, they're talking about 30, 40 years. That just means there's no justice there. There's no judging that the people who died are human beings. Seymour was 16 when he carried out the Dashley Act, which prosecutors said was the direction of friend Kevin Bowie, who mistakenly thought someone had stolen his phone, lived in the home. The two 16-year-olds and Dylan Siebert, then 14, planned the fire for weeks. According to investigators, only 3 people escaped the fire by jumping from the second floor of the home. Seymour knew he and his friends had killed the family the following morning. Online records show he read the news about deaths and searched for information about the prison sentence for murder. It took months for the police to run down these people who murdered these immigrants. Here's a picture of the house fire. I'll show you that very quickly. And the aftermath. The father tried to get people out of the house, but succumbed and suffocated just steps from the front door. Who raises children that think it's appropriate to burn someone's home down because you think someone stole your phone? Wow. Well, a Haitian national has been arraigned for the rape of a 14-year-old girl in a Massachusetts hotel. This criminal alien evader was busy there. Police say they've been busy answering calls to the hotel since the state began housing criminal alien invaders there in October. And look at them laying on a U.S. flag. You see that? The insult. In the top of that photograph, there's a U.S. flag, colored. It's not even a proper flag, and they're laying on it. Maybe it's not a U.S. flag. 26-year-old Haitian national has been charged with raping a 14-year-old girl at a Massachusetts hotel being used to house criminal alien invaders under Governor Maura Healey's administration. Corey Alvarez was arraigned on the charges of child rape Thursday, March 14th at the Hingham District Court. The alleged assault took place at the Comfort Inn in Rockland, according to a press release issued by police. Rockland is located 22 miles south of Boston. Patrol Lieutenant Thomas McDonald of the Rockland Police Department told the Epic Times that since the state secured the 100-room hotel as a shelter for criminal alien invaders in October, the police have taken a heavy volume of calls related to the property. We're there a lot. He said that Mr. Alvarez, the victim, and the family were among illegal immigrants being housed at the hotel. The attack has drawn national outrage, some blaming Joe Biden for it. Biden flew this illegal dirtbag into our country. Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee said on Twitter, "No border, no budget, shut it down." Others placed blame more locally on State Representative Peter Durant, a Republican who berated Ms. Healey and her administration for the assault. "I'm appalled and deeply saddened by the news of rape at the Migrant Center in Rockland," Mr. Durant told the Epic Times. "This heinous act with the shelter is not only acceptable, but also indicates systemic failures of the Healey administration." Governor Healey did not respond to inquiries from the Epic Times about the girl's rape. And here's a picture of the rapist, or alleged rapist. Ms. Healey declared a state of emergency last year when the state hit its cap of 7,500 criminal alien invaders. They call for sympathy, saying most are good people escaping brutal conditions and need the support of Americans. No. There are other destinations they could have gone that came first. They're destination shopping. Well, the Fire Department of New York Commissioner Laura Kavanaugh not only got booed when she brought the political event that she turned it into with Letitia James, now she's being booed on the streets during the St. Patrick's Day parade. Someone named Kavanaugh. Fire Department of New York Commissioner Laura Kavanaugh, who's never been a firefighter, jeered at New York City St. Patrick's Day parade after a call to hunt down New York Attorney General Letitia James hecklers. Fire Department Commissioner Laura Kavanaugh was heckled at the city's annual St. Patrick's Day parade after her department vowed to go after Trump-supporting FDNY members who booed New York Attorney General Letitia James. "You suck!" one protester yelled at her. "Firefighters are the hunters." As she passed, city service members were seen waving and giving thumbs up to a loud group as they repeatedly chanted former President Trump's name. Some even stopped to shake their hands. Yep. Post has reached out to FDNY for comment. The angry outburst of protesters comes after a chorus of smoke eaters mercilessly hailed James with boos and cheered the ex-president when she took the stage. In response, Fire Department, New York Chief Department, anyway, we've covered that already. They're investigating. So look at all these people. Make St. Patrick's Day great again, Donald Trump. There is the smug, never been a firefighter, scumbag, Fire Commissioner of New York, Laura Kavanaugh. Yep. So, yeah, she got booed, and rightly so. And there you have it, folks. That's the news for today, the 17th of March, 2024, on St. Patrick's Day. And we've got the hat back on now. Oh, boy. All right, what have I missed in the chat here, folks? Green like today's St. Patrick's Day. So remember that one. What's that? I was thinking in Africa in general, we get lots of different minerals and untapped oil, but no, I don't understand why they would go to Niger. Okay, let's go see what South Africa's saying. It's all about the minerals. What's all about the minerals? What are the foreign legions' actions in West Africa today? They're almost non-existent. They're pretty much gone. So should the USA continue to spend money on base overseas with the knowledge that the next Joe Biden is coming at some point? Of course. Of course, we have defense treaties which oblige us to do this. We didn't have a defense treaty with Niger. We just had a foolish decision by the Obama administration to launch a base there. This was a unilateral decision taken by the Biden administration and financed by a corrupt Congress, or not Biden, by Obama administration and financed by a corrupt Congress. That's how we wound up with building a base in Niger. It wasn't because of American consensus. It wasn't because we have a treaty with Niger. It was because of Obama. Who protects Hollywood actors who travel to South Africa? Are they minded by the CIA or do they employ private security? I have no idea, Paul. They obviously wouldn't be provided by the CIA. The CIA doesn't provide protection services. Where do you get that from? Where do you make that assumption? Well, people really don't know anything about the CIA. They think all kinds of things about the CIA that simply aren't true. They don't provide protection services. They don't do that. The State Department has diplomatic security, and they're provided by State Department employees who are law enforcement officials. I've worked with them endlessly. But they don't provide security for celebrities. That must come from their pocket. All right. I've yet to see a mercenary base in Stellenbosch with a hind, but then I've not yet been to Anglo-American's wine farm. Paul, I have no idea what you're talking about, brother. Yeah, Russia is expanding faster than Russia. Arctic says Six Nations winner's the best team in the world. No. Best team in the world are the Springboks. Oh, you're saying it was 2023 and now 2024 Six Nations winner sucks. Yeah, and you're making a good point there, Arctic. That's a fair point. You're right. They said that before the World Cup. Now they're saying they suck. You're right. Good point. I was thinking Africa in general, we get lots of different minerals, untapped oil, but I don't understand what South Africa is talking about. So I don't know if I can comment on it properly. Mark Myberg is here. Welcome to you. Okay. What else we got here? 7 colors make white because Pink Floyd said so. Was it a stand-in or was it his cocktail? I don't know what that is. It's like Durban. Active faith. The American spirit didn't teach the people about any other spirits and they don't know what's going on. I have no idea what you're talking about there, active faith. American spirit. Huh? I don't know what that's. What are you talking about? Pedestrians and rugby and Isterplatz. Okay. Boy, lots of race baiters out there for sure. That is definitely the case. I cycle through there in the morning sometimes. Okay. Isterplatz. Okay. What else we got in here? I know someone who works in logistics on the base. I don't know about that. Okay. Should RFK get a 4-year term at some future election? No. Just got my IRS return. Understand the urge. Yeah. Well, I haven't filed my IRS yet because I'm still waiting for my damn 1099 from Google. Yep. All right. What else here? Coburg facility. Oh, okay. The Sangoma that was implicated in Jocelyn Smith's abduction was released with no charges. Has something else come out which isn't in the press yet? Nice Irish look, says Mark. Well, thank you for that. Where did you procure that stupid Irish hat? No, I got this a long time ago. It's not a stupid Irish hat. It's pretty cool. Anyway, but what was Paul talking about here? So, minerals. I'm not sure what that was about. So I wish I'd heard or read that. Oppenheimer stopped funding their beloved ANC. I wonder why. Yeah. State of Western Cape. You've got an uncle in the furniture business, says Cyril. That's funny. Yeah, no, I did see that, Jean Raynell. I did see the Stormers. That was a friendly, and they beat them 45-29. Saw that and reported on that last week. Yep, sure did. Smash the button to watch me Christine. How's it going, Christine? All right, sometimes I wish you would listen to me. I did listen to you. What are you talking about that? All right, so it's a leprechaun look. It is St. Patrick's Day, folks. I do have another shirt, which I didn't put on. Where the heck did I put that at? There it is. Hang on, I'll be right back. I wore this shirt, but I do have this one, which I didn't wear. Eat, drink, and be Irish. Didn't wear that one today, but I do have it here handy. So, yeah. All right. Anyway, RFK, why would I? RFK. The guy's Seems like an honorable person, but his positions are pretty naive. He really doesn't understand foreign policy. He's as bad on foreign policy as Joe Biden is. He thinks that China doesn't like us because we've been antagonistic with China. we have bent over and taken up the backside by China for decades. The foolish decision to engage with communist China has led to China being the workshop of the world. It could have become the workshop of the world had it become a multi-party, capital-based market, but it took some tenets of that, and it continues its totalitarian fascist rule over its subjects. And it has destroyed Hong Kong. It is seeking to destroy Taiwan. It is ecologically destroying the Scarborough Shoals and the Spratly Islands by building artificial reefs and artificial islands on top of coral reefs in the South China Seas, making a false claim of nationhood over that area. Yeah, everyone's got an Irish hangover, yep. Garrett says I'm going to win. Well, wouldn't that be nice? All right. Yeah. Yeah, well, it's St. Patrick's Day, folks. We do this every St. Patrick's Day, wear stuff. Get a hat with a 4-leaf clover and change your life. This only has 3 leaves. Yeah, well, I couldn't find a 4-leaf clover when this is a 3-leaf clover. So anyway, St. Patrick's Day, the man who drove the snakes out of Ireland. Do you believe that? Do you honestly believe that? Of course, St. Patrick's, the holiday we celebrate today, which is really kind of like a secular thing, is a consequence of Irish immigrants to America. Of course, the Irish have been coming to America since the beginning. Since shortly after Jamestown was founded, we started getting Irish just a few decades after that. And we've been getting Irish ever since. But the big flood of the Irish came in the 1840s when the potato famine hit. The potato blight wiped out the potato crop in Ireland, which had become the staple of the Irish. They had a population of, 8 or 9 million on that tiny little island, and they fled. A huge number of them died, and millions fled Ireland, and many came long after that. We had 3 major cities which had big cities with major Irish population centers, Boston, New York, and Chicago, of course, being those 3. But the Irish are all over the country. I have Irish background. In my family, I have the Kellys, the Mahans, and others in my family history. Yep. Leonardo DiCaprio starred in a film in which they run military mercenaries gangs from Stellenbosch to rape and pillage African minerals. Oh, is that what you're talking about, Paul? I didn't catch that. Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, and Kardik, I warned about that as an intelligence analyst. I said that China, see, look, it's a trend. It happens all over the world. We've seen it for decades. So it started with Japan. Made in Japan was a derisive term because of low quality. The Japanese stole intellectual property, copied, and made duplicates of things, violating copyright, trademark, and using industrial espionage to create products that were inferior to duplicate other products. And they sold them, and they sold and sold and sold. And as they got enough revenue, they invested into research and development, and they invested into technology, and they developed their own, and they became better and produced better quality products. So Japan, made in Japan, became a mark of honor and of quality. They did the same thing as Germany. In the 19th century, the U.S. forced, or the UK, I think it was, forced products coming in from Germany to have made in Germany on it because that was a derisive term. It came from the Hun. It was poor quality. But of course, the German products were the best in the world at what they sold, and so it became a mark of quality and a mark you wanted. And the same thing eventually happened in Japan. And after Japan, it was Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, South Korea. I mean, people never bought products in these places. Now they make world-class microprocessors, cellular telephones, communications equipment, automobiles, technology, shipbuilding in South Korea. All of this, it's a wave. And it starts like this with copying and theft, and then you start investing on your own, and you start building better quality, and your reputation goes up, and you build the best products in the world. China is on the same curve. But with that comes expectations from your labor force for better wages, for better benefits, for higher quality and standard of living. And eventually your labor costs begin to climb. And the advantage, the artificial, not a comparative advantage, but the artificial advantage you had of low wages by underpaying workers evaporates over time. This is one reason why South Africa has become popular for some Anglophone countries to use as call centers, because they can underpay your labor, but overpay or pay a competitive rate in South Africa's marketplace, where people make far less on average than expensive countries like the UK, Canada, the United States, Australia, and New Zealand. So they can hire South Africans and pay them 5,000 Rand a month, which is a king's ransom for many South Africans. But that is a joke in England. That's a joke in Canada. That's a joke in New Zealand or the United States, where they would have to pay someone $3,000 to $5,000 a month to get the same quality person, or probably even more than that. So it's a typical trajectory. China was on that trajectory, and I warned people that for years. China will not be able to sustain this. When they lift people out of abject poverty, and 800 million Chinese were lifted from abject poverty into low and middle income classes, their expectations are higher. They expect more wages. They expect more benefits for their labor because they appreciate the value of their labor. And as a consequence, China becomes less competitive on that base because it wasn't a comparative advantage. A comparative advantage is something that you possess that is unique that others can't replicate. A competitive advantage is what that artificial advantage was. It was competitive because they could underpay labor, but you can't do it forever. Also, China did so at grave risk to their environment. They damaged their natural environment with their polluting factories and their disregard for environmental regulations for decades. And as a consequence, much of China is heavily polluted. And the consequences come back to risk. You cannot do that forever. And eventually your costs go up. It's as simple as that, folks. It's as simple as that. Blood Diamonds is a different movie than what he's describing. The Blood Diamonds was about diamonds not in South Africa, but in Sierra Leone and Liberia. That's what Blood Diamond was. And in that movie, Leonardo DiCaprio did not play a South African. He played a Rhodesian. And his Rhodesian accent was pretty darn good, as well as his Rhodesian vernacular. He had a very good vocal coach who was a Rhodesian. Yeah, that's a very different one. They weren't in Stellenbosch. Yep, love the Irish, like the Boers. We'll fight for our perceived rights. Well, apparently the Irish and the Republic of Ireland think that Hamas is a good idea. Many of them. Is there a movie where we are not portrayed as evil antagonists by Hollywood? Sure, Paul Storm. That movie would be called The Gods Must Be Crazy, which is you're portrayed that way by South Africans. Has to be aliens in the movie. Yeah, Blood Diamond is based in Stellenbosch. No, Blood Diamonds, he is in West Africa, not Stellenbosch. He runs around West Africa. Hey, Wes, welcome to you. Adolf was not his true name. It was Adolphus. Yep. When are people going to realize enough is enough? 2 people living in a 6-bedroom house. Who's got a 6-bedroom house, Petra? I'll take that. I'll take a 6-bedroom house. I'd like a huge property. That way, when the winds come and people have fires, they can't burn my house down too. The mercenary base is Stellenbosch. Yeah, Paul, but the movie takes place in West Africa. You were talking about something in Stellenbosch and mercenaries in Stellenbosch, but he's in West Africa. So yes, there's a brief scene of that, but he's in West Africa. That's where he's going after the Blood Diamonds. So all right, but yeah. Anyway, so there you have it, folks. Yeah. So 93 likes. Thank you all for that. That's very kind of you. Gone a bit longer than I intended to here. I was just going to go for an hour and a half. We've gone a bit longer on a Sunday. I've got stuff I've got to do, so I'm going to have to break off here shortly. Thank you, Paul, for sharing that. Yeah, so I'm not sure what I missed here in the chat, but I missed a few things. A real-life leprechaun. Not really, but people are wondering about the beard. One reason I didn't get rid of the beard entirely was for St. Patrick's Day. Well, now St. Patrick's Day has come and not gone. It's mid-afternoon here in the East Coast of the United States. By the way, let's take a look at those solar panels and see if they're doing anything today. Had a surprisingly good day yesterday. Really good day for solar panels. Didn't really realize that. Yesterday chalked up 38 kilowatt hours. Today, not so great. Although it looks like the sun has just come out and I'm hitting about 6 kilowatt hours. I never get more than that. I'm wondering if I'm ever going to get more than 6 kilowatt hours because the system is rated at 8 and I haven't seen 8 yet. Hopefully that will happen, but I never see it go above 6. So anyway, we'll see what happens. But it is nice to feed that back into the grid. All right. All right. People never stop wanting, Petra. Well, that's true. People like to collect things. They really do. People collect things all the time. All right, folks. Thank you all so much. Thanks for being here. Be safe out there on St. Patrick's Day. Appreciate your support for the channel. Be sure to hit the like button. We're close to 100, but we're not quite there. Could use a few more. I don't know if Ronaldo is still on or if he's off, but I did... gosh, I don't know if Ronaldo's off. I'd set this for people to go there, but you'll be redirected to his stream. If it's over, you can watch Ronaldo after the fact. Thanks, everybody. Cheers, and we'll see you later on. Bye-bye.